I've built a URL shortener in Rust in 2021 to get better at the language. Here's a quick visual demo. I'm shortening the URL to my GitHub profile to /hello, and when I browse /hello, it redirects to my GitHub page. I won't touch this front end today. It's built in Rust 2 actually, using U, which is a Rust front-end framework that uses WebAssembly. But I'm actually never using the front-end at all, so I don't really want to maintain it. I have been using the URL shortener daily though. The CLI tool is super convenient. I tend to build bash aliases for all the commands I run regularly, and I use the CLI tool of the URL shortener the same way. I just type go to something, and then it opens the relevant page in my browser. I guess it's what most people would use bookmarks for, like browser bookmarks, but I'm more of a keyboard user than a mouse user, so I found this to be more effective for me and more comfortable as well. So here, for example, I'm creating a short URL for my YouTube channel, typing go to YT and then the URL I want YT to be shortened to. And then once I've registered that, every time I type go to YT in the terminal, it will focus the browser, open a new tab, and show my channel. So really anything you use bookmarks for, I use this instead. Just saves me a lot of time. One thing I've been missing after 4 years of using it is the ability to change a URL once it's been saved. So if, for example, I make a typo in the full URL or the shortened version, or simply if the link changed, I cannot change it really. One recurring example of this is the Jira sprint board for my current team. Every time the URL changes, because I know there's a reorg or I change teams or whatever, the URL changes and my link is dead. So the only option I have is manually edit the database file, which is a bit annoying. So I'm building this feature today to edit existing links. So quickly how it works, there's an HTTP API with a web server that's running constantly. Every time I shorten a URL, it saves that to a database that's actually a local file. Use it as a database. And then I have a CLI tool that exposes a convenient API. And the CLI tool will make HTTP requests under the hood, but I don't have to worry about this. I just have to type like go to YT, for example. So to show you how it works, I'm doing some direct curl requests now to the API. So to create a URL, I do a post on /ID, whatever the ID is, and the body is the target URL. So now the URL is registered under the hello ID. So when I make a get request to the ID, so /hello, it will redirect me to the target page. So here is my YouTube channel, for example. In practice, the way it works is when doing a curl request or when browsing the short URL directly in the browser, I do a 302 redirection, HTTP 302, and I use the location HTTP header. The CLI looks for this header to know what to redirect to, and then it opens it using a crate I found online. So I already have a route to create a new shortened URL, either with an ID I'm passing or random, which is not really random, it's a hash, but as far as the user calling that method is concerned, it will get a URL it cannot predict. what I want to do is just create a new one, like a new endpoint that works on the put verb, HTTP verb, but everything else is the same. So the body will be the same, the payload path will be exactly the same as the create new endpoint, right? So in the implementation of the create short URL body, I can see that we're checking if the URL already exists, like the ID, not the actual URL, right? The shortened one. And if it already exists, then we're returning an error. That's the path we want to change. So now we want to optionally, return. So if it's the post endpoint, want to return an error. If it's the put endpoint, we instead want to update the existing record. So to reflect that, I'm going to rename the function. I'm going to call it upsert short URL. So I can use it in both the endpoints instead of copy pasting the code around, right? So I guess the parameter that needs to change is the ID, and instead of an option of a string, the first thing that comes to mind is an enum. So the enum will either will have two variants, right? The one where we create a new URL, and in this case, I guess we want to keep it the same. We want to keep it like the ID, it's the same type, option of a string. It's a string and not an and str, simply because, well, we want to own the value in the comment in the enum. Usually you do that like in enums and strings, enums and structs. You have a string, and then in function parameters, you have an and str. And also the result is also a string. Function params, references, function outputs, owned objects like a struct or an enum. And enums and structs fields, always string, always an owned object. There are some cases where you do want to store a reference in the enum, in the struct, in the result of a function. Usually that's for performance, but here, like with the volume we're handling, which is only me, I'm the only user, I don't need performance at all. And like the performance gains are so minimal that in the vast majority of cases you just don't care. You just want the more maintainable code to be used. So anyway, the enum. Second option is the one where we want to update the short URL, and in this case we don't want the parameter to be optional at all. We always want to update a specific ID, right? So this one is just a string, it's not an option of a string. So now in the function I have, I'll replace the type I have with the command I've just created, and I think command is too generic. I'll make it more specific. I'll find a good name for it. So upsert short URL command looks more descriptive. I also need to update my functions documentation because now it's doing one thing extra. So how can I write that? So the existing behavior is still the same. There's a new thing now. You can also update an existing short URL by ID. Or replace the existing value. I guess I need to space it correctly as well. Oh, it's a detail. So I will replace the existing URL. Like the existing target URL, not the short one. The existing target URL at /ID. I'm going to format as well, like the URLs using the backticks. Yeah, so now my parameter, it's a comment rather than an ID. We still need to extract the ID from it. So it's a match, but now it's a match on the enum instead of a match on the option. So we have an ID both in the case where there's a create short URL comment, or the case where there is a update short URL comment. I don't want to import, I want to use the full qualification. I think it's easier to manage. So in both these cases, we'll use the ID that we received. And then we want to handle the case where it's none as well. And we still want the same behavior, so hash. When no ID is provided, we use the hash of the target URL as the ID. One thing I could have done is, instead of naming the parameter inside the comment, I could have made it like this, like an unnamed, like anonymous parameter, right? What I don't like about this is that it's not obvious from the naming what this string, like optional string or string, is. It could be the target URL or the ID, so that's why I'm specifically naming it. More often than not, I will use an anonymous parameter name, but in this case, a named field makes more sense to me. So when I come back to the code later, I'll be able to understand that it's an ID. It's not like the target or whatever. So now that we have extracted the ID from the comment, so now let's do the actual behavior that we want, which is, depending on what the comment is, we either want to return the error or upsert the data. So, replace the existing data that we have. So I guess in the case of the create short URL, we'll keep returning the error. And in the case of the update short URL comment, we'll have the same behavior as when there's nothing, like when the value doesn't exist yet. So I can't remember how the insert works, if it will fail, if there's already something, or if it will work. I guess the way I'll go about it is, instead of trying to understand the code, I'll just write a test and see what the behavior, like the actual behavior, is. And yeah, that's the way I usually go about things. I write a test, and I will make sure the code does what I want it to do. And yeah, I'm sure, like, if I try to understand the code, I could understand it wrong. And also, if I come back to it a month later, I'll have forgotten what it does, so I'll have to understand it one more time. So instead, I'm just writing a test for my current behavior every single time. So I know my thing I changed works, and the other things, the things I haven't touched, I know they still work. I think that's a pretty powerful way to go about it, because as time goes on, you're still as fast, as productive, right? When your project starts being bigger, a lot bigger, if you adopt that like testing strategy where everything is tested, you can just keep the same speed and keep adding stuff and not worry that you'll break something, or having to understand the whole code base to make a minimal change. Instead, you'll try doing the change the way it seems that it will work, and then you write a test for it. Either it works and you're good, or it doesn't, and now you have to, understand the code a bit better. But so anyway, back to the implementation. I'll just fix the compilation now. So because I've changed the parameter type to my function, I need to fix every call to that method. So I'll just see where it's read and replace the row ID with a comment. So when the comment, when the ID is some ID, the comment is create short URL, right? Because it's the new, it's the code that already existed, so all the tests are for this. And when it's none, when the ID is none, the comment is still create short URL, but with a non-ID. So I just need to wrap every ID with the create short URL comment. And in the implementation, the 2 endpoints, they're pretty straightforward. So post will do the create short URL, and the put endpoint, the other one, the new one. So the upsert short URL, the update short URL. So let's see if it compiles. So it does compile, all the tests are passing. So I'm just going to keep running my tests while I'm making changes. And now I want to write a new test to see if my new behavior actually works or not. So I'll just find a test that creates the URL, copy paste it, and make it slightly different. I don't want an integration test yet. I just want a unit test. So this one looks exactly like what I want. So I'll copy paste it, rename it. So update existing URL. And I actually want 2 of them. I want to update the URL when there's already a value, and I want to update the URL when no value exists. So I guess I need to use the update short URL comment for this. Let's fix the ID. Will be, I already have an ID, so ID to string. I'll take the format is string that is returned, and I'll put that in the expectation of my test, and I'll replace the values with what I'm expecting them to be. So the target is google.com, and the ID is hello. So that should be okay. So now I guess this is a reference. Well, actually no, the inside is a reference, so the easiest way to go about it, it's an option of an str, so it's easier to make it an option of a string. And that should be okay. So the other test, to update the existing URL, they're both passing the tests. So this one has a value and then it gets updated. So the value gets replaced with google.com. And the assertion is wrong then. So I'll do 2 comments. First comment to insert, and then second comment to replace. Shit. Yeah, so replace with yahoo.com. And yeah, second comment. It's an update this time. The first one was a create. Same ID. This one is not optional. And I'll call the function get the result. I'll assert that it's an OK, right? And the text is also string this time, and I'll just copy paste this one. So hello should now point to yahoo.com. Oh yeah, and I need to do something about the result, and it's not compiling. So I'm speeding up this part, but I tried running 2 comments. I ended up reverting the test setup to what it was before because it's just easier to make it work, less setup code in the test. So back to having a database already with something, and then making the assertion, like the second comment only and the assertion. So the test doesn't pass. Why is that? So it's expecting Yahoo. Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't change the target. I kept it google.com, so replacing that fixed it. So yeah, it's correctly replaced with yahoo.com. Hello redirects to yahoo.com. That's correct. The test is passing. What we like to do is maybe add some kind of indication that the URL was replaced, and yeah, just like this. Say what it was before. So now redirects to yahoo.com, was google.com. So starting with the test, I say it doesn't pass, so I'll do the implementation. The reason I want to do this is simply, I think it's a better API for the user of the tool, right? If you've made a change by mistake, you didn't know there was something, you will want to know what the previous value was, so you can like manually revert or something. So anyway, I'm using contains key, but I actually want the value, so it's get. So let previous target is db.get, same ID. And if we have a previous target, instead of if it contains the key, then it's the same if condition. So it's an option. I want to extract the sum, and it's called previous target now. Shit. Why doesn't it compile? So it's an AND string. So we're going to clone the inside of the option, right there. So that should be okay now. Why is it an option? It's not supposed to be an option. We're using the sum to extract the value. This is, oh yeah, it's there, yeah, for the let. Never used. Yeah, that's right. I guess this was the only place where the contains key was used. So it's probably fine to just delete now. I don't need it anymore. So neither of the tests are passing now. So what's wrong? The expectation looks off. So let's go to one of them. So the expectation is correct, definitely. So why? Oh, this different text message. So what's the difference between them? They look the same. Oh, there's a comma there. So I guess it's just the comma that needs to go. So this one should pass now. And it does. So the other one, either the expectation's wrong or the implementation's wrong. So let's go to that. So there's a value in the DB, but the test is for a URL that doesn't exist. So I want an empty hash map directly as the database. I want an empty database, so I can just do that and remove the DB setup. And I think I should pass. Yeah, and it does. It does. So we're good. So yeah, the functionality is covered. Like the file that updates the URL that does not exist is covered. Now I want to cover like what will happen when we get the response. So I guess what I want to do is an integration test now. So something that will actually call the endpoint, not just the logic inside the endpoint, right? So we're looking for, again, for a test that I can just copy paste. So ideally an integration test that creates the URL. No, yeah, this. As usual, copy paste the test and then rename it to wait, what is, no, never mind, it's not an integration test at all. So let's keep searching for an actual integration test. So one of these, yeah, this one looks more like it. Create, no, update an existing custom short URL. So yeah, so what this does is we'll run a service with our actual endpoint. We'll receive a request, the actual request, right, with the like payload and so on. And it's actually we're actually making a call to our service, right? So it's routed to update with ID. So there's this route. So we will call the route, right? And then we'll have the ID, the payload. How can I set the... So I'll just have a database there. Database with hello as the ID, and then the target will be like google.com. And the request will be put this time and will replace with hello.word, so google.com at the beginning of the test. That's the initial like state, and we'll replace the hello ID from google.com to hello world, making an HTTP request. So we're expecting what's wrong? Oh yeah, string. I need to stringify both of them. Compiling. The name, yeah, update, shortened URL, that's good enough. So the tests are passing. I don't actually want to change the body of the test. I just want the endpoint to be called. I want to cover like all the cases, the one where we already have something, the one where we have something new. I just want to make sure the call is routed to my internal function I created before, right? The logic of the endpoint itself is already tested. So I don't want to duplicate all the test logic in the integration tests and have a million integration tests. they both just have their own purpose. Integration tests that the HTTP put call makes it to the internal function, and then unit tests test that internal function directly. The code's working, so I'm just committing, pushing, creating the pull request. I'm creating the PR right away, so I can have CI to run and just tell me if there's something missing or whatever. If there's something that's not compiling or missing test coverage or any clippy lint. So I'm done with the API changes. I'll keep the tests running, and now I'll change the CLI. So CLI uses the CLI has a couple of comments and flags I can use. I'm just going to go ahead and add a new one. So it's -- short. So sorry, -- force. So the long is force, and the short version of it is F. The struct opt crate I'm using allows passing the flags anywhere you want, so you can pass them at the end, at the beginning, in the middle, but I guess it makes more sense to me to pass it at the end, so that's how I will actually use it. But anyway, the crate handles every case for you, so you don't have to do anything specific, it just works. I forgot the comma there. So what this flag specifically does is it updates. I will update the short URL if it already exists, and if it doesn't, create. Actually, I'm going to go the other way around and make it more clear. So it creates the URL, or let's say the short URL, or if it already exists, update it instead. I think it's easier to understand as a user of the CLI. So now that we have the arg, we actually have to use it. We want a config option to always force replace by default if we want. So if we, in the config, we set force to true, we always want to force the replacement of the existing URL. And if the option is not set in the config, or if it's set to false, it will use the command line flag instead. So if the flag is set to -- force, we replace. If it's not, then we return an error when trying to create a URL that already exists. I guess in my case, so yeah, the default is false. I think it's very straightforward, it should be false. And now the tests. So this one is test open browser. So I guess it's going to be false there as well. And config none. Do I need to change anything there? Probably not. Okay, next test. This one is for verbose, so I can just set to false and none again. No arg, no config for this, we don't care, it's not a test about this. And that's it. I can go ahead and add my new test right ahead, right? Test force, and then here it's set to false everywhere. Yeah. this doesn't change, it's the same for every test. We're just setting it afterwards in the assertions, just before the assertions. So args, I'm just going to replace all of them at once with force. Will this work? Yeah, so there, we're testing the case, like the default case, the case where both the args and the config have the same value, so here true. My tests, I can see compilation issues, so I'm just going to browse to it, and then here, yeah, I haven't parsed the arg, so I guess I'm just going to write it at the top to keep the order that I have in the struct. It's going to be slightly easier to read, so I'll start like with the other condition. The other ones are if not arg silent, for example. So here I do if args force, return it right away, and else if we have a config item that is set. I'm going to rename this actually because force is not clear. Like we don't understand force what. Force, I'm going to say force update, or maybe update is still a bit unclear. Force replace is probably a lot clearer, so I'm going to call that force replace. And I guess with the arg it's force replace, and there I'm going to call it always replace. So yeah, back to the condition, if args force replace is true, then we return it immediately. And in the case where the config is set, okay, I'll start with the case where the config is not set. I think we should start with the config there actually. It's going to be easier to read. So just the config, right? If the config is not set, then we use the args, whether it's true or not. And now the case where the config is set, we'll use the config value, but if it's false, we will still use the args value. So, well, we'll see if the tests pass, but I think this is correct. And we can probably rewrite the entire thing in a more rusty way. So, config false replace is some end. Yeah, so either the args are set, or the config force replace is some end, and now we want to return its own value. I'll use identity, the identity function there. So yeah, this should work. Yeah, so identity is basically like it's the function returning itself. So I could write it that way, like value. It's a function taking a value and returning a value, returning itself. Identity does exactly that, and it's just more readable, I think. At least once you're used to it. So if you've written that a couple of times, it becomes super simple. You just understand what's happening immediately, and yeah. So I want to use the same thing for the verbose and the open browser logic, but I won't do it right away. I think I just want to finish the feature first, and I'll see if I have time to rewrite the other things. So let's make the test compile. So I'm adding the missing CLI option now that is called false replace. So I'm just adding it everywhere. I don't know why my auto-completion is not working. Oh, it's called always replace. So I don't remember how these tests work at all. Okay, I'll worry about that later. I'll keep making things compile. Once it compiles, I'll understand the code, right? So let's just write a new test. Copy paste an existing one that looks the closest, and going to rename that. I guess I'll call it update existing. So I guess I need this to, I need a new one of these. Well, anyway, always replace, yeah, this will test when the CLI option for always replace is set to true. So the compiler is telling me that the always replace is not used. So I'll try to find where I need to use that. So I'll just check where CLI options is used. Yeah, well, it's used in all the tests. Where is the code again? So this is the function that takes the short URL and the target. So yeah, this is where I should plug it. So if always replace, like it's just pseudocode for now. I'm trying to think about how I'll do it, but if always replace, then we'll use the client. Yeah, we'll do client.update URL. And else we'll do the existing code, right? We'll do this. This is the case that already exists where, like, before we made our changes. So yeah, just pseudocode, but it's going to guide me towards the implementation. So the option is called self.options.alwaysReplace. So I can write that right away. So I'll put that inside the if. And the else is probably already good because it's the code that already existed. And now, yeah, I'll just remove that pseudocode. I'll pass the parameters, same short URL, same target. So now I need to create that, I guess. So it's a trait. I'll just make a new function called update URL, same params, same return, and now I need to implement it. So this is a mock client. I can just, yeah, create it. I guess I'll rename that as well. Nothing else needs to change, I think, inside this function. So update URL called with, I'll create that. Copy paste this, same type. Okay, here, same. I'll just go to all the places where the code is red. So yeah, here again, same thing, update URL. The rest is the same. Here, I'll replace that with update URL. No. Update URL called with. And I'll need to create it. I don't know why there are two mock clients. It's probably a problem in the design, but anyway, I'm just going to go ahead with it right now, and any refactors will come later. So what's wrong there? Yeah, this is the actual implementation. So I'll duplicate the function. It's called update URL, and now the body, I guess it's mostly similar between the two. It creates the client URL. The only thing that actually needs to change is the method, right? So I'm just going to go ahead, create a function that will combine the common code between the two. And I don't know how I will name it. I don't think there's a clear name there. So it's the function that will like call the API to either create or update the URL. Yeah, maybe set short or create short URL. That's the common behavior between the two. So same params, but I want the method as well to be passed. That's the thing that differs between the other two methods that already exist. So method is the HTTP method, right? So post or put. And it returns exactly the same thing. So yeah, the entire body actually should be the same. Like it's shared between the two functions. So yeah, I'm just going to get that function, like make an empty function, yeah, for both of the existing ones, and then call the one I just created. So cell.create short URL, that's the params, and then this one has a method post. We'll wait because it's an asynchronous function, and the other one same thing but put. Pretty straightforward. And then this is not hard coded. This is this is the method we got as a parameter. So it's red because I'm adding a function in the tray that doesn't exist there. So I'll just make a separate impl block. And move the function there. I missed part of the cut and paste, I guess. So yeah, getting the rest of it. What's wrong with method? Which one is it? Hyper? Yeah. Okay, I don't know why I put the use inside the function itself. Makes no sense to me. I'm just going to put it at the top, which is what makes sense. So running the tests, you can see that some expectation failed. So one of them is some and the other one is none. Yeah, must be something with the mock client. So why? So the drop, yeah. I'm just fast forwarding there for a few seconds the fixing of tests. So just adding missing fields and whatnot to expect calls to be made. And I'm going to test the CLI right away manually. So when I go to the URL and it's already registered, it says already registered, but now I pass double dash force and it doesn't error. It doesn't return an error. So if I go to hello, now it's saying yahoo.com, which is the one I've replaced it with. And yeah, like without our changes, it would have said already registered and then kept the previous one. But because I did dash force, it did replace with yahoo.com. So this shows that it's working as expected, and also, I mean, just using it right now, it felt convenient, right? That's exactly the kind of API I wanted. I just wanted to be able to replace like that. The way I actually use it is I deploy it with this systemd service on my Raspberry Pi. So I have a makefile like script that will build that will cross compile it for my Raspberry Pi using the right target, and then the small script to deploy that will use scp, which is SSH copy. So it's copying the release binary over to my Raspberry Pi, copying the service and all the things needed for it to run. And what the service does is it keeps my API up and running. So if I restart my Pi, the API will still run. If it crashes for whatever reason, I saw a couple of unwraps here and there, then the service is going to take care of restarting it. So manages all the uptime of the API for me. Found that to be really convenient. And well, I do have DNS, local DNS that I set to HTTP go.to, and it's pointing to my Pi's address on port 50002, internal port. And yeah, it just makes it convenient for me to use. I don't have to remember like my Raspberry Pi's URL or anything. Yeah, so this deploy script is super convenient. I just make some changes or whatever, and then type make deploy, and takes care of everything for me. Well, the CLI, I have another script called build CLI, and then it's just going to place the build binary in my path. So I can just type goto in my terminal. So yeah, it works. So I'm committing, pushing, and then if CI passes, I'm speeding up the video again. And CodeCov told me I had 2 lines of code not covered by tests. One of the 2 lines was actually a false positive. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but making unrelated changes, this disappeared and it was shown in CodeCov as covered. And the other one was actually a missing test, so some functionality that wasn't covered by tests. So this specific functionality that wasn't covered is the HTTP call made by the CLI tool to the server. So I just wrote a unit test, actually an integration test that would start a server, a mock server, and run the client normally with this mock server's URL, and expect it to be actually called and return something. So after doing that, I've got the full 100% coverage. I'm also I also double check that I'm actually covering all the actual functionality, and I'm pretty happy with the pull request. So I just pressed merge and I deployed the new version of the API and updated my CLI tool in my different laptops I'm using. So thanks for watching. I've got a second video about this. So before I could do any coding to improve my tool, I had some compilation things to fix. So I haven't touched the repo for 4 years, and there were deprecated dependencies that I had to update, and also I had to fix new clippy lints that were added since last time. So I just I had to update my code to Rust, like a more recent version of Rust, a more recent version of Clippy, a more recent version of libraries, and the next video will show that. So one last time, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.